And he says, well, Dr. Matthews, I got some great news for you. I said, okay, cool. And he puts me on hold. And he comes back, I got some really exciting news. I said, oh, so it's great and exciting. I'm really intrigued now. So he comes back and he says, I was just told that I'm going to be made a king in Ghana. And I'm like, whoa, that's cool. You're going to be a king? I'm going to know a king? He said, well, I got some more for you. I got some more for you. I said, really? What else? And he says, I'd like for you to be one of my royal advisors. Now, Thomas, I'm like, are you serious? He's like, yeah, I want you to be one of my royal advisors, a liaison to me. I'm going to assemble a team of people, and I want you to be one of my royal advisors. And I am so honored and humble. And like you said, you had your mouth open. My mouth is still open. This was a year ago, over a year ago, and I'm just still like blown away by this.
The Thomas Green podcast is owned and made possible by Ethical Marketing Service. If your business is struggling with Google or Facebook ads, maybe you're frustrated figuring it out, or there's a performance issue, Ethical Marketing Service has worked on hundreds of accounts, and we can help in this area. We offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, and for every direct account we look after, we sponsor a child in a developing nation with food, water, and education. If you would like to find out if we can help, it's a free, no salesy consultation call, and the link is in the description. Enjoy the episode. Thomas Green here with Ethical Marketing Service. On the episode today, we have Dr. Barrett Matthews. Dr. Matthews, welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Thomas. I'm glad to be here.
I am happy to have you. Would you like to take a moment and tell the audience a bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, how much time do we have? I'm Dr. Barrett Matthews. I am a media optimization professional. And what I do is I work with people, speakers, coaches, authors, to help them gain more visibility and to drive their competitors crazy by using media. And I've got a background in media. So what I do is I show people how to use media to reach those people that probably wouldn't know them, but actually want to pay them if they actually knew who they were.
Okay. And for clarity, how would you define media?
Media meaning books, podcasts, live streaming, in any type of vehicle that you can use to reach the masses, such as live streaming, streaming television, film, radio, all types of different things, newspapers, blogs, all those are all forms of media. Social media as well.
Thank you for that. In terms of sort of where your story begins, excluding the hospital, where would you say, where would you start there?
Well, I grew up in a small community in Maryland, and I went to, I've always felt I was meant to do something different. You probably understand what I mean. And when I got out of high school, I thought I wanted to be an architect. That's what I thought. I went to college for architecture, and it kicked my butt up and down the hallways. And then I realized I wasn't going to be an architect. And I wasn't really sure what I was going to change my major to. And my sister said, well, you've always been interested in television and radio. And to be honest, my thought was, well, isn't everybody? I just thought everybody liked radio, like TV, but I never thought of it as a major or as a career. And I changed my major, my grades shot up, and I enjoyed it. I was having fun. It was so simple to me, especially compared to architecture. And I did some internships with local TV stations, and I got on the radio in college, got on TV in college, hosted some sports shows, called the football and basketball games for our team, and we even had a newscast. I was a sports person for the news. I was heavily into sports, and even wrote for the newspaper as well. So I was just enjoying it, and then I got an opportunity to intern at a TV station in Washington, D.C. And while I was there, I was a sports intern. One of the sportscasters who was just at that time, he was just a weekend sportscaster, maybe filled in during the week. He liked me and kind of took me under his wing. And that person happened to be James Brown of CBS Sports. And he took a liking to me and started. And when I got out of college, he referred me to get a job at the TV station there. And I got a job there as an assistant director. And then he actually asked me, would I be interested in moving up to New York and working with CBS Sports, the network, which was actually a dream of mine. So I did that like 2 years out of college. And, I got a chance to work with some of the best in the business. And it was really a fun time for me. I learned a lot. Some of it was hard times. Some of it was not things I'm very happy about, but it helped me to learn a lot. And it also helped me to realize I don't like corporate America from that standpoint, because I saw some things I didn't really want to deal with. But I got out of the media for a while, started doing other business things. But no matter what I did, something in the media kept calling me back, whether it's hosting something, whether it's writing something, editing something. It just kept calling me back. And I started hosting shows, podcasts, blog talk radio shows, doing interviews. And I had a few shows of my own. They went very well. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to pull away and I want to start helping other people, because by that time, from the time I started to now, media had evolved tremendously, to the point where when I started in media, if you wanted to be on a TV show, you had to know a producer or something. They had to like something about you to even consider you. Now you can do your own streaming TV show. You can do it your own. If you wanted to be on a radio show, you had to know someone. Now you can start your own podcast. So it was things like that now the media has evolved to where we have control of our situation and how we are seen. So what I want to do is teach people now how to use that and how to be seen, so that they can actually not have to depend on someone else to call their name. They can call their own name and be their own boss and be what I call a media boss.
That's a cool concept. And thank you for the answer.
Thank you.
Do you think that the architecture, the reason why it didn't work was it just wasn't your passion? Do you think that was the main problem?
No, I wasn't good at I wasn't good at the math part of it, the trigonometry and things like that, and structures, and those. It was just I just could not grasp it all. The drafting part, the drawing, I loved that. It was fun to me. I love the creative side of it. It was the technical side of it that really did me in.
So I think if you had a passion for those things, I think it wouldn't be a problem for you, right? Whereas if you're in media and it's like it's fun for you, then it's not difficult. Would you say that's
yeah? Well, I'm a creative type, so if I'd had a passion, I think early on for the math, it might have worked out better for me in architecture. But I didn't have that going into it. And even with media, I'm not one who has a passion for the technical side of things, like as far as how the sound works and how the cameras work. I'm not a technical type person. I'm a creative type. So I have ideas on what should be done in media, and I express that to those people who have the technical side of it.
Well, you mentioned in your answer about there was some stuff that you really didn't like in the corporate world, and then there's some stuff where you sort of having fun. Do you mind sharing a couple of those stories?
Sure. I mean, when in the corporate world, I saw some things. I tell people I call them the isms. I saw sexism, racism, nepotism all in one place, and I just didn't like it. And they decided that they didn't like me because they wanted someone, and I think plenty of people know this, on the job. They wanted someone who was going to, as they call it, brown nose and try to get the way up by, being nicer and kissing someone's rear. And that wasn't me. I was going to do my job, and that was it. And they apparently did not like that. So they decided not to renew my contract. And it was fine, because I remember a professor in college, he told all of us, he said, "You haven't worked in television until you've been fired." So when it happened, I wasn't like devastated. I was a little hurt, but I wasn't devastated, because I remembered what my teacher had told me. And that allowed me to just move on to the next phase in my life. But it taught me a valuable lesson, is that I don't like someone having that type of control over me, as to where they can say your life is going to change just like that, and I don't get any say in it. So that's something that it changed me forever on that point.
So you're a business owner at heart. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I say I'm unemployable right now.
So what about like the best story from that time frame?
Well, the best story, I mean, it's just, I got to work with some of the best people in the business. That was like fun to me. Yeah, I was, like I said, I'm a big sports fan, so I was working. I'm a big football fan, American football fan, and I got to work with some of the legends of the game, like Terry Bradshaw, Dick Butkus. I got to. They asked me one day to walk San Diego Chargers former quarterback Dan Fouts to his hotel. So I'm walking through the streets of New York with a Hall of Fame legend, and I get to just talk to him. And there was one moment where I there was a game he had played years ago, and he threw a touchdown pass to a guy named John Jefferson. And John Jefferson made a great catch for the touchdown. And I always wondered, was he throwing that ball away and Jefferson just made a great catch? Or was he trying to throw that to Jefferson? So I got to ask him, and he told me he was throwing the ball away, and Jefferson just wanted to make a great catch. So he remembered that game. And I was like, wow, that's cool. I got it straight from the horse's mouth, and that was like a fun moment for me. I got a chance to talk to some of the legends, and it made me feel like when they did their broadcast each week, I was a big part of it because I got to. Now, when you see it back, keep in mind, guys, this was way back in the time when we didn't have the internet. So there was a packet that each announcer had to get about the game, about the teams, stuff going on the field and off the field. I was responsible for putting together that packet with articles and everything and sending it off to each one of them every week for the football season. And so when you heard them on the air talking about certain things, a lot of that information they got because I put it together. And so it made me feel a big part of it. Then on Sundays and Saturdays for college football, but when the games were going on, if anyone watches like the pregame shows, you might see some guys milling around in the background. Well, that was me. That was some of us. We were doing all the research during the games so that they would have some stats to tell the public. So it was fun. I mean, I enjoyed that time. I'm still, and keep in mind, this happened in the 1990s. Well, actually, late 80s, early 90s, really. And I'm still good friends with some of the people I used to work with. Like some of them we communicate all the time, but so I did form some good friendships, but it was a time that I learned from. It was a time I did have fun with, but it was a time that I wouldn't want to repeat it again, but it was definitely some things that I learned from, but I had some fun at the same time.
Well, there's one thing when I was doing some research before the episode, and you've got a story about a global civility leader. And I'm not going to spoil it for other people because I want to get it straight from you. But when I read it, I was like mouth open. I couldn't believe it.
I still do have my mouth open. Well,
would you be willing to tell that one for us?
Sure. There's a friend of mine, Dr. Ruben West, and he was a great speaker coach. He coached speakers on how to present, a great coach. And he did an event called Black Belt Speakers, where he would come in and train. Well, because he's also a black belt in martial arts. Well, I'd gone to his training before, but he was having another one in 2019. So I went to this event. Now, I was also the host of a radio show with Ruben, an online radio show called the Black CEO Morning Show. And Ruben asked me, was I coming to his training? And I said, yeah, I'm going to come to this one. I think I'm going to come. And so I went there, and there's this guy there named Dr. Clyde Rivers, who we had on a radio show, but I'd never met him in person. And Dr. Clyde Rivers runs an organization called I Change Nations, where they promote civility in all the countries around the world. They just go around promoting everyone being civil to one another. And he's worked with a lot of dignitaries and kings and queens everywhere all over the world. And he was one of the guest speakers there as well. And we all got a chance to sit down and meet with him privately. I actually went over my time with him because he and I we hit it off really, really well. Well, I noticed during the event, a lot of people were getting called up because they were getting awards. And I was sitting next to a friend, and she got an award. And she said, yeah, everybody, we kind of knew we were getting awards. So we all came because we knew we were getting awards. I said, oh, that's cool. Well, then they got up, and Ruben starts introducing this other award for a Distinguished Leadership Award. And he was talking about this person, how they've been doing a lot of great things and leading people, and a lot of people love his work and so forth. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then he says, Barrett Matthews. What? He called my name, and my friend, she said, "You didn't tell me you were getting an award." I said, "I didn't know." So I got up, I got the award, and then I got a chance later that evening to talk to Dr. Rivers, and he was explaining to me, hey man, you need to put out a press release and all this. And I'll be honest with you, Thomas, it still didn't register with me about the magnitude of it. I was just honored, but it didn't register as to how big it was. 'Cause I did a press release, but it really I still didn't mean that much to me. I mean, I shouldn't say it like that. It didn't mean as much as I found out later it was. So then Dr. Rivers came to my town, and I'm in the Washington, D.C. area, and I met him at his hotel, and he and I were talking, and he says, "I want you to write a book." And I said, "Okay, I've written a book before." He said, "I want you to write a book on execution." And I said, "Okay, I can do that." He said, "But I want you to also make it more of an international flavor too, because there's some things people need to know about doing business internationally as well." I said, "Okay, I can do that." He said, "There may even be an honorary doctorate in it for you." And I'm like, "Okay, whatever." I really cared about that. So I wrote the book. I sent him copies, and he said, "I'm going to distribute this to some of the people I know." Now, and we backtrack a little bit. Prior to that, I talked to Dr. West, who told me to call Dr. Rivers about that award I'd received and ask him who else had gotten it. And he let me know that there were some government people in other countries, some head president of the Knights of Columbus, all these world dignitaries who got this thing. And I'm like, and me? Wow, I was very humbled. Because I did not realize it was that big of an award. So back to the present time, I wrote the book. I sent him copies, and he said he was going to send it to some kings and some people in other countries. And I'm like blown away. So then COVID hit, and I remember I walked out of my house to get some air, and I was just taking a walk around the block, and my phone dinged, and it was a picture that he had sent me of a diploma with an honorary doctorate in humanities that he had awarded. And I was like, he did it. And I was like blown away by this, that he actually, and then it dinged again. And he made me a world civility ambassador with his organization, I Change the Nation. And I'm like, at this point, Thomas, I'm over the moon. I couldn't believe that he did all this for me. I was just really humbled by it. So he later tells me he wants me to do a podcast on civility, where he would basically get me guests for the podcast, and we would talk about different things on civility. And I said, "Great." I said, "If you're going to get me guests, I'd be a fool to say no to that." So we were supposed to have a conversation about who the guest would be, and so forth. And he says, "Well, Dr. Matthews, I got some great news for you." I said, "Okay, cool." And he puts me on hold. And he comes back, "I got some really exciting news." I said, "Oh, so it's great and exciting. I'm really intrigued now." So he comes back and he says, "I was just told that I'm going to be made a king in Ghana." And I'm like, "Whoa, that's cool. You're going to be a king? I'm going to know a king?" He said, "Well, I got some more for you. I got some more for you." I said, "Really? What else?" And he says, "I'd like for you to be one of my royal advisors." Now, Thomas, I'm like, "Are you serious?" He's like, "Yeah, I want you to be one of my royal advisors, a liaison to me. I'm going to assemble a team of people, and I want you to be one of my royal advisors." And I am so honored. I'm humble. And like you said, you had your mouth open. My mouth is still open. This was a year ago, over a year ago, and I'm just still like blown away by this, because I mean, I prayed to God that someday that I would be used to do something to help change the world. And then someone asked me, "So you're going to do it? Are you going to help him with this work in Ghana?" I said, "I have to. I prayed for this." And so it was just, it's a humbling experience, but it's a very, very weighty experience, because it's a big responsibility, and I take it seriously, and I'm very happy to work with him. As a matter of fact, I owe him a phone call, and but it's fun. I'm getting to implement some things. So what he wants me to do is put together a program called Media Monarch, where we're going to be teaching people how to control their own media and to not buy into the propaganda that is fed all the time, and just report facts and learn facts, and then not get into the sensationalism that goes along with some of the media that we see out there, so that we could actually, the thing is, there can be two sides of a story, but neither one has to be wrong. It just has to be a perspective. And what we want to do is let people understand that that's what it's about. So we're going to be teaching that from a grassroots type of scenario. We're going to set that up in different countries. We're going to start in Ghana where he is, and we're going to move it all around, and hopefully it'll grow and more people will start getting back to basics when it comes to media and journalism and just reporting what's accurate.
Well, that sounds like really worthy work. As a side note, that sounds like a very good thing to be spending your time on. When I read the summary of that story, I was like, there is a major lesson in that, and but I don't want to read into it. So, what was the lesson that you learned from that story?
Well, I think there are a couple of lessons. One was, like I said, I prayed for this, and it told me to have faith in that things will happen as long as I keep working. And that's the main lesson, I think. The other lesson is, you never know where your relationships will lead. You never know where they'll lead. If you first of all, be someone of good character, be someone of integrity, and when you meet these people, you never know where they're going to lead. And because of these relationships, I didn't know when this was coming. Like I said, I went to this event not knowing that I was going to be getting an award. I had no idea. I just went there because I wanted to learn some things, and I wanted to support my friend Dr. West, who was putting on this event, and because he's been a good friend to me. And remember, he and I are working on something else right now. But it's just one of those things that I didn't know where it was going to lead to. But you never know in what relationship. But as long as you have some integrity and you stay someone of good character, you never know. And it may not come the way you want it, and it may not come when you want it. But just be open to the fact that things may come your way, and you have to be in position to handle it. So those are some of the lessons that I learned, because I didn't expect any of it, but I'm ready.
Well, the second one was the one which I initially thought of, because presumably there are plenty of instances along the road of that story where it could have not happened. Meaning, like, if you had decided, well, I don't feel like going to that award show, I'm going to miss it. I will give it a pass, or I don't want to do that work.
And that could have been easily done.
Could have gone the other way.
Yeah, that easily could have been done, because I said I was going to go, and he actually called me to confirm I was coming. And I didn't think anything of it. I said, it's my friend. He called me to make sure I was coming, because he has to check his attendance and all that stuff. I didn't really think a lot of the fact that he called me about it, but I see why he was calling to confirm.
So what does it mean now to you that you're liaison to the king?
Like I said, it's a lot of responsibility. Keep in mind, he's dealing with a region of like 3 to 4 million people, and he's having to help build some things, some different infrastructures, and a lot of us. I'm not the only agent. He has several, so we're all doing different things, different roles, different parts, and he's still building it. He's still building relationships with the other kings there, different relationships with different people in government and so forth. So it's all a process, but I just have to do my part on my end and not worry about what he has to do, because he has a big plate. He has a big plate. And he wants me to put together what I have to put together. And then I'll come back to him with what I have. And the main thing is that as long as I'm working on something that's related to civility, then he's fine with that, because we'll bring it to them. So what I'm doing right now with Dr. West and another associate of mine, Kimberly Arrington, we're working on a civility in sports network, where we're trying to work with different sports all over the world to make sure that there is some civility. I know you've seen some of the craziness that happens here in the U.S. with sports and athletes and fans and so forth, and internationally with fans trampling each other and so forth. We want to get some civility going on, where people can treat people as human beings and not go crazy and so forth. So that's what we're working at, and we're trying to put together some platforms. We want to actually present it to some of the people with the NFL here and the NBA, and maybe even at the Super Bowl if we can.
Yeah, it's a great message. So thank you for sharing that.
No, thank you.
In terms of your podcast guesting at the moment, you got your podcast host as well. So in terms of mistakes that people typically make with podcasts, what are the most common ones that you see people do?
The most common one is getting out of their own head. They need to people overthink podcasting. I think that is the biggest thing people do because they talk themselves out of doing it. They talk themselves out of starting a podcast. And I think all of us have a message that someone needs to hear. And if we just start talking, because people think they have to be perfect when they start, and they don't. You and I both know we've made mistakes, and we're going to continue to make mistakes. It's just part of the human experience. But I think another mistake that people make is that they go into it thinking that it's going to just automatically turn into money for them. And a podcast, if you're doing a podcast, yeah. I mean, you can make money doing a podcast, but that should not be your focus. That should not be your focus, because if you don't make money right away, then what happens? If it takes you a while to make money, what are you going to do? And another thing I think that people do is they go into it looking to have like thousands and thousands of downloads right away, and it don't happen like that. I have a friend. He started a podcast a few years ago. About 2 years ago, I think, 2 maybe 3 years ago. And he said for a good year and a half, they were just steady. They may get 100 downloads, a month. Then all of a sudden it shot up. Right now they're at over 200,000 downloads. And he said it just happened, but it took like a year and a half before things happened. But most people aren't that patient, so they'll do 4 episodes and quit. So those are some of the mistakes that I see people making. It's a lot of it is in their head. They got to get away from that and just do it. Just enjoy it for the medium that it is. Start talking to people, spreading your message. You never know who's going to pick up on it, who's going to listen, who's going to love it, and what other opportunities may come from it.
It sounds like some sort of algorithm change or some sort of suggestion from an algorithm, if it's like a spike like that. Would you say that's accurate?
I don't know. I think it's more consistency. I think it's because I've heard that from other people before too. They said they were at it for a long time, and then all of a sudden it started shooting up. And he said he's been doing the same. When I say he's been doing the same thing, he hasn't really changed his podcast. He might have changed some of his marketing of his podcast, but he said it just shot up at one, and it's been steadily doing that now. So like I said, now he's at about over 200,000, and I said, cool. I said, let's go for 1 million.
Well, you said there's plenty of ways to make a living from podcasting. What ways do you typically recommend?
Well, one I mainly recommend to people is sell your own products and services on your podcast. I mean, a lot of people, I get asked this question a lot. They go, well, can I sell on my podcast? It's your show. If you don't sell on your show, where else are you going to sell? It's your show. So you can sell on your podcast. If you have a product or a service or whatever, offer it on your podcast. Another thing, because a lot of podcasts, if they want to get the big dollars, they have to have thousands and thousands of downloads, because then the advertisers will be attracted to them. And that takes some time to build that. What I also mention to people is there are local businesses in your area who would probably love to be on your podcast. And they would more than likely be ready to pay to be on your podcast. And that way it can cover any costs that you have to spend on your podcast. And it costs a lot less than going to a terrestrial radio station for them. And the great selling point for them as the business owner is that ad stays there forever. So, you can have them, or you can have them as guests and pay to be guests on your show. A lot of people do that. They have guests that pay to be on the podcast. So those are other ways. And of course, when you get a large number of downloads, you can get the money from the big sponsors. But another thing is affiliates. You have guests on there, if they have a product or service, ask them if they have an affiliate plan where you can market their services on your podcast and you can get paid for it, and vice versa. You can have your product or service and have them be representatives for you as affiliates, and they can sell your product and services as well. So there are a few ways you can make money on and I'm sure there are more, but it's just a matter of I always say just don't go into it with the purpose of I want to go in and make money. Because it's not some job that you're going to work 2 weeks and get a paycheck.
Because I think the statistics or something say that it's either 7 episodes or 11 episodes people are done by that, and
Yeah,
that's it.
yeah.
They don't make any more.
I've seen less.
Well, you mentioned 4. I just kind of
Yeah,
feel like 4's not
I've
having a
seen
good
people
go at
do
it.
a month and they're done. Do a weekly podcast for a month and they're done.
So there's always one question that I ask whenever I speak to someone. Interested
Uh-huh.
to know what your answer will be. It is, what does success mean to you?
Wow. Uh, success, and I'm gonna sound a little cheesy, but success is to me is making God happy. This making God happy because as far as on this earth, as far as material things and doing that, I mean, yes, we all love it. I'd love to have billions of dollars and be able to go anywhere I want to, but it's not going to matter in the end. And I like success is staying healthy and being around my family. Things like that. That's success to me. My parents are. My dad just turned 90. My mother turns 88 in a little more than a month. That's success to me. That just being around them and learning from them and seeing them, and that's success to me. It doesn't have to be all the other things that people look to, the material things that come with it, the trappings of success, as they say. But I don't need that. I would like it, yes, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're successful, because you and I both know there are a lot of people who are wealthy who are miserable. So, and I'd rather not be that person.
Well, normally the follow-up question is, based on that criteria, are you a successful person? But I guess it's tricky to know if that's the criteria.
It's tricky to know if I'm making God happy, but I'm doing my best, and that's what I can say. I was telling someone that nobody's perfect, but God made us perfect in His eyes. So all I can do is just keep working at staying someone that He will be pleased with, and as far as the other part of it, I get to see my family, I get to be around them, I get to be with my friends. And I'm relatively healthy as far as I know. so yeah, I mean, I would think I'm a success in those regards.
Is there anything that I should have asked you about today?
No, unless you can think of something. I don't want to take your time. It's your show. You ask whatever you want.
Well, do you have any closing thoughts for us at all?
Yeah, I would just say that if anyone out there is looking to do better for themselves, stop procrastinating. Someone once told me, if you have, and I talk to business people a lot, if you have a product, a service, a brand, or whatever, and you are looking to get out there because you feel it can help people, if you feel it can serve people, well, how long are you going to make them wait? It's time for you to make it happen, to get out there. And that's why I work with people to help them get their message out there. I make sure that they spread themselves around the globe so that everyone can see you. Make them see you. Make them hear your voice. So that's what I have to say to people.
Thank you for that. My initial impression of the story about meeting someone who turns out to be made a king was like, I don't know, there's some sort of luck involved, but meeting you and hearing what your sort of the context of the story, it kind of there is a cause and effect side of that that I think there's a reason why that happened. It wasn't just some luck. So, and I really appreciate you sharing the story there.
I appreciate you saying that.
In terms of where people can get in touch or follow you, where do you share?
Well, I'm on social media. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram as well. If they want to reach out there, I'm on Twitter. Also, if they want to, I have a complimentary training that I do for people. They can just go to 5waystoPayingClients.com, 5waystoPayingClients.com, and they can just look at the training I offer. It doesn't cost them a dime. So just information they can learn on how to get more clients that want to pay them.
Barrett, thank you for being a great guest today.
Thank you, Thomas. I appreciate you so much.